Hey, how's everybody doing today? So I wanted to talk about a few things that have been on my mind recently, and I guess firstly, uh, it to me it's very sad that there are people that are so vehemently opposed to truth that they can't even have a dialogue or discussion about the topic or subject that is in question. They think that they are so uh, correct that they can't possibly think that there's another proper perspective to have or point of view on the matter or on the subject, and instead attack people like me because I have the balls to actually say it, to talk about it, to look it up, to actually read the source information, whether it's a federal code, state code, a law, constitution, whatever. Yeah, and many times when I'm talking about these things, I'm doing my own research and citing from the source, uh, or the knowledge that I've gained from the source about the topic. And it's truly sad that there are people, there's far less now on this channel commenting than before, thankfully. Uh, I don't know, maybe YouTube's algorithms are doing me a favor and deleting some of these ridiculous comments because even they realize they're ridiculous. I don't know, but it truly is sad that there are people that are so opposed to truth that they have to make up words like sovereign citizen. I mean, these people, when they use these words, sovereign citizen, or they shorten it, which makes them sound even more stupid, Sovcit, Sovcit. I don't know if you've seen that in some of the comments. These people make themselves sound more dumb by using these terminologies. Because they don't even know what the terminologies mean. They just, they're like a little child that runs around and hears a word, and then they start repeating the word. Whether a good, bad, or word or a bad word. Um, and I've seen it firsthand where I'm having a conversation with an adult and don't realize there's a child in the room, and all of a sudden they start using the same language that I'm using. They start repeating some of the same words. Um, but they don't understand what it means. They don't comprehend what those words mean or why they're being used or whatever. They're just words. So the child runs around using the word or the words. Um, some people might think that's funny or whatever. I don't know. That's neither here nor there. I'm gonna get off topic. But these people, these adults, act like these children because they should have the mental capacity to look up the definition and understand, comprehend the word, how it's used, and so on and so forth. But instead, they just spout off like an ignorant child that doesn't know any better, that's just using words that they've heard someone else use, that they heard an adult use, a grown up use. And so they just start spouting off and start using these words without even understanding or comprehending what they actually mean. Uh, I mean, look it up for yourself. Sovereign citizen. It's an oxymoron, much like these people that make these comments. But it really is sad. It truly is sad that these people are either that damaged, somebody's hurt them that much that they refuse to accept the fact that they might have a wrong perspective. Um, maybe it's a pride issue. What is it the saying goes? How does the saying go? Pride comes before a fall. Um, maybe that's part of it, where they're not humble enough to consider that maybe they've been given wrong information, and that until they actually grow up and research what it is that the information that they're being given, these words that they're running around spouting off because they don't know what they mean. They just hear a word. They're a grown up or somebody they look up to for whatever reason says something and they run off with it. like little cheerleaders and drama queens. Uh, it's ridiculous. So, but yeah, I mean, like I said, firstly, it's extremely sad that there's these types of people out there, and I don't know truly if it's from the brainwashing and these people are just that convinced that what they're saying is correct or appropriate or proper, uh, or I don't know, maybe they're getting paid to be an opposition of some type, just to sow discord and um, doubt in people's minds. Uh, I don't know. I mean, and some people, they might be swayed by some of this ridiculous nonsense, but I think a majority of people that hear what I'm saying, hear what I'm talking about, and actually validate it for themselves, have the ability to think for themselves and actually look up the information to see that I'm just going by the information that I'm finding, these so-called laws and codes and statutes. Excuse me. But I'm going to the source. I'm and many times, most times, I'm reciting or citing the actual source um, of information, and it I don't know, when I get people commenting on here about how I don't know what I'm talking about, I'm like, holy cow, I'm reading it verbatim most times. Um, it's not like it's rocket science. It's pretty simple English. Uh, some of these words have double meaning, and we haven't been taught the truth about that. So yeah, I mean, from that context, I can see. But a lot of those words that have double meanings and such. Now, I don't know everything. I'm not an expert, but I've done enough research and learning. I've educated myself enough to spot some of these words when I see them in either the laws or codes or whatever, or in different publications. When I see these words, they throw up a red flag to me, and I realize that there may be something more being talked about than just what's on the surface of what's being said in the statement. But anyways, so there's that. I mean, it truly is sad that there are people that don't want to think for themselves. They just want to be spoon fed and or bottle fed, or suckling of the tit like a child, like an infant that never got properly weaned. They've never been taught how to chew meat, and were never forced or taught to grow up. They were always coddled and babied. And so, I mean, I guess that makes more sense. It's those types of people that when mommy or daddy isn't coddling them and, petting their hair and telling them everything's going to be okay and telling them what to think, if that's not happening, well, they just freak out. And if anybody says anything contrary to what mommy or daddy says, then all they know how to do is just freak out. I mean, it's almost like, zombies, zombie apocalypse kind of. Not quite in the sense that they're running around eating brains, but their brains have already been eaten by themselves, literally and figuratively. I mean, some of these people, some of the drugs and shit that they're doing is just ridiculous. They're just destroying themselves. But that's their choice. Who am I to judge, really? I mean, I can only judge from my standpoint that I don't want that for my life. I'm not going to destroy myself or allow someone else to destroy myself for gain or for any reason. So, yeah, I mean, there's that. And then the other thing I want to make a comment about, secondly, I guess, for this recording, is you may have noticed I put up a couple recordings of this nightly noise that is pretty regular. Every night it's one or the other or both or multiple. Maybe some other business operators out there that I haven't identified that are operating machinery as well. That might be blending in together with this other noise that I'm recording. I've identified the sources of. Now, I don't know where people get the idea that municipalities, especially here in Ohio or states like it that have what they call a home rule status or home rule state, where these municipalities think that they have you know, complete license to do whatever the hell they want. It's carte blanche to make up their own rules and laws and all this garbage nonsense. To a degree, they do, but they're bound by the structure over them, the state and federal structure, the codes and regulations that actually bind the corporations and these especially the municipal corporations and the persons that are acting on behalf of them. That's initially what these codes and statutes, regulations were set up for and imposed, was to regulate commerce, to regulate these companies and the people acting on behalf of these companies to keep them in check. But what's happened is instead of them being held accountable, they flip-flopped it. It's another one of these April Fool's Day or kind of sick jokes. Or like just the upside down. That was one thing in one of the TV shows, Stranger Things, I think, that they used as a visual example in the show, the upside down. And maybe that's not a good example, but I've noticed that things are backwards in many different instances in life today. For example, prime example, with the whole gender reveal for babies being born, male or female. Of course, for a while now, for as long as I can remember, boys were signified by a baby blue or a blue color, and baby girls were identified by like a pink or a light red. And that's actually backwards. Because the color red is a more masculine color. And you can look into the origins of the colors, the wavelengths and so forth of the colors. There's a lot of evidence to support what I'm saying. But even thinking about it from this standpoint, I mean, there's that phrase, maybe tongue-in-cheek or however you want to take it, but was it men are from Mars and women are from Venus? Well, if you think about it from that context, whether it's true or not, it doesn't make any difference. I really don't care. But the concept of the idea behind it is that, well, if men are from Mars, Mars is known as a red planet. So wouldn't red mostly or more likely signify men or male? And then with Venus, there are some correlations there with the blue and other things. And I don't want to get into all the details of that. You can look it up for yourself. But even something as simple as that has been flip-flopped. Interestingly enough, I mean, you can think about it, come up with your own conclusions on that as to why that is. But we just found that there's things that are backwards, and so we've got companies or corporations, service corporations, that are supposed to be enforcing these codes, they're actual commercial codes, on the corporations and the persons acting on behalf of the corporations. Now, I'm not a corporation. Went through the whole birth process when I came out of my mother's birth canal. There was some business transactions that were done at that time, unbeknownst to me, that registered me with the state. In all actuality, when you look at the history of it, they're actually registering the cull or the afterbirth. That's what's actually considered a straw man. But again, don't take my word for it. Look it up for yourself. There's so much information regarding this stuff. These ideas, not just stuff. But the information's out there. So I just find how in so many ways things are backwards. Like for example, you can get a ticket if you allow it for some tyrant pulling you over and giving a citation because you didn't have a seatbelt or a strap over your shoulder to hold you into the seat, even though you're in an enclosed structure. Yet on a motorcycle, not only do you not have to wear a seatbelt, but you don't even have to wear a helmet. So it would seem like that's a little backwards too. I mean, not that I care. When I ride a motorcycle, I prefer not to wear a helmet, and I mean it'd be ridiculous to wear a seatbelt on a motorcycle. But the idea is there. So the vehicle that is more dangerous has less restrictions. But I don't think it's really about safety. I think it's more about control. Because there's been instances and accidents where people have come out not as bad as they probably would have had they not worn their seatbelt, and vice versa. There's some people that didn't wear their seatbelt and actually came out better in the end because they didn't wear their seatbelt. Um, so, but I think we should be able to make our own decisions and not have uh, people act on behalf of service corporations, think that they can uh, basically interrupt travel and transportation on the highways and freeways and roads by turning on their lights and sirens and pulling somebody over and forcing the rest of traffic to stop or go around or be inconvenienced because, oh my goodness, somebody didn't have the right sticker on a plate on their vehicle, or um, they didn't have a strap over their shoulder. I mean, it's ridiculous. It has nothing to do with safety. Because, in fact, in a lot of these situations where people are getting pulled over, I've seen recently in these body-worn cameras and the in-car cameras from the officer's perspective, there's so many videos where people are getting pulled over for ridiculous infractions, traffic infractions, and not wearing a seatbelt, not using a turn signal or indicator, and it turns into a chase because the person or the man or woman that's in the car driving that's getting pulled over gets scared for whatever reasons. There's I'm not gonna get into all that, but they get scared and they don't want to pull over, so then it turns into a chase, and then it turns into terrorizing everybody on the road because someone in a uniform that works for a service corporation wants to terrorize people because they don't have the right sticker on their plate, or they don't have a belt over their shoulder holding them firmly into their seat. All these types of things. And when you take that into consideration, and you take into consideration what is done many times, the actual harm that's being caused to the community under the color of law action of holding people accountable and bringing them to justice because they didn't wear a seatbelt or they didn't have a sticker on their plate or whatever the situation might be. I mean, at what point is it going to come to where, if your car's the wrong color, you get pulled over? I mean, what are they going to make up next? It's ridiculous. It has nothing to do with safety. It has everything to do with control and making money. Because every time they do that shit, they pull people over and give them a stupid ticket, or the man or woman doesn't know their rights and they accept the ticket. Well, then that cop, the police department, and the service corporation that they work for and are contracted to can then make all kinds of bonds and extra monetary devices like negotiable instruments, which is basically what a ticket is. And they can profit more than just the money that they're extorting from the man or woman or person that they happen to be contracting with on the side of the road. But so there's a lot of backwards things these days. And here we've got another example where the service corporation, the municipality, who is charged with protecting the area that it's been given to protect. And not only that, because when I relocated to this area and acquired properties and so forth, there were contracts that were created uh, for on a couple different levels, multiple different levels, but primarily there was a contract of trust that was created. See, when I gave the service corporation and they accepted the information of the trust, they became trustees in the relationship, in the business relationship. And so they have a duty to act to protect myself, who's the beneficiary in the transaction or the situation. They have a responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility to make decisions that are beneficial to me, the beneficiary. And if there's any costs, any taxes, anything that's owed of that nature, it's their responsibility to handle that as the trustees. It doesn't make no difference to me. It's not my responsibility to know. I can know if I want to. And sometimes I do, because it's good to know what's going on and to keep people in check and keep them on, on a level plane. But a lot of these service corporations, they don't act as they should. They don't act as a proper trustee. In fact, what they do is they accept the trusteeship position, but then twist everything around and try to act as the beneficiary and try to force the beneficiary to be the trustee or just an administrator. So that way they can benefit from their own actions. And that's what happens when police officers or law enforcement officers, whatever you want to call them, I have a difficult time calling them that these days because they don't enforce really any law. What they're doing is they're mostly enforcing their own perspectives and opinions. Because a lot of times, as I have recorded, especially from these incompetent idiots here at Zanesville, public servants here that I've talked to, they've admitted that their own incompetence. They've admitted that they don't even know the law. They don't even know the codes or how to apply them appropriately. They're just doing what they're told. They're just doing their job, according to them. But obviously they're not, because they don't even know what their job is. That's the irony of it. That's really another sad part about the whole thing is we've got these people who are making, I don't know, $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 a year as a law enforcement officer that don't even know the law themselves. They don't truly comprehend or understand what it is they're even talking about. All they know is they have probably a handful of codes memorized that they deal with on a normal basis that they can trick people into accepting that they did some type of infraction or they violated some code, which doesn't even apply. And so these people getting paid this, absorbent amount, what's the word? Exuberant about it? I can't think of the word. A lot of money. They don't even know the law themselves. I mean, hell, the law director for Zanesville didn't even bother in 3.5 years or so, 33 months, something like that. Didn't even bother once, not a single time, to look up the codes and statutes for the state that actually tell them what they're supposed to do. It tells them, specifically in Ohio Revised Code 715.49 in Sections A and Sections B, it says point blank in there that it's the municipal corporation, which would be the city, whatever you want to call it. It'd be Zanesville, the public servants that are contracted to work for the city employees, but I mean, let's make it simple. They're public servants. Um, it's their responsibility. It says it in that code that it's their responsibility to address noise and disturbances of the peace, um, or disturbances. I can't remember the words verbatim off the top of my head, but you can look it up. It says the words in there. It specifically says noise. Um, it specifically says disturbances, and then it goes on. I think it's in section B where it describes how if the municipal corporation has an agreement with a neighboring or a municipal corporation that's adjacent to them to address noise issues. Basically, I mean, you can look it up. I'm paraphrasing roughly right now, but it says it point blank, and so not once in the 33 months or however long it was up until the point where this asshat got up on the stand and testified under oath that he had no idea that there was an Ohio Revised Code 715.49 in existence. And he didn't know that it was the municipal corporation's responsibility to address the issue that I was complaining about. And so we have this backward situation where we've got public servants that don't even know what the hell they're doing. And I don't know if it's just because they're that stupid, which is probably a big part of it. But the other part of it is too is it's just business as usual. They don't know any better because they haven't been taught properly. Unfortunately, it seems that most people in this area don't really pay attention to much other than sports, and I mean, it seems to be about it. Maybe the weather. When I try to talk to some of these people about some of these topics and ideas, they just kind of get glassy-eyed and look like they're going to have a stroke. I can't tell you why that is. It's unfortunate. But this is probably why these public servants are doing what they're doing is, they've gotten away with it for so long. They don't know any better, and so they think that it's okay. And then I come along and try to say, oh, wait a minute. This is what it actually says. This is what you're supposed to do. This is what they are told to do. And when I explain it to them, they try to tell me that I don't know what I'm talking about. Well, wait a minute. Now, maybe I do know what I'm talking about, and these people just haven't been doing the right thing for so long that they don't care. Especially when there's no accountability. Hell, there's no internal affairs. There's no accountability from the higher-ups in the chain of command at the police station. The public safety director and the chief, they're a fucking joke. I've never met more incompetent people, more incompetent men in my life than the public safety director and the chief of police. It's concerning. And it has to be part of the smaller town mentality. But not necessarily. I think there's something unique to Ohio where there's just something a little bit more special about the people that are here and that have never gotten away from these, smaller areas that aren't really exposed to much. They're stuck in their bubble. And with all the nepotism going on, you've got these families that have been in the area for generations. And so they, start businesses and have businesses in the area, and then family members in that family become politicians and public servants themselves, maybe, working for a court, and also other family members of the same family working for the corrections and different multiple facets of the system. So then Well, hell, once they get a good portion, a good portion, a good amount of people in their family in positions of so-called authority where they can make decisions, well, then they can start to skew things and sway things into their favor, to whatever their family wants, not what's good for the whole, for everyone. And so I've seen that firsthand here. Uh, the difference between the northern part of Zanesville and the southern part of Zanesville, especially going into South Zanesville, it's night and day different. If there was any noise disturbances like these business operators operating their machinery at night in the northern part of Zanesville, it'd be shut down yesterday. They wouldn't stand a chance. But it seems like because it's in the southern part of Zanesville, it's okay. It's very, very bizarre. I mean, even when you look at the city limit line, how it's cut out for some of these specific businesses that make a lot of noise. It's ironic that they've been given special treatment, purposefully kept in the county so that way they don't fall directly under a noise ordinance or disturbance of the peace code, because technically they're not in the city and all this bullshit, even though the code doesn't say that. But see, that's the retardation of it all, is that these public servants think that they can make it up as they go, or that the city can make it up however they see fit. And although that's true, they forget the caveat or the extra part to that idea or concept. They have autonomy to an extent, to a degree, but they're limited by the codes put in place by the state, as well as the federal codes that limit the state and so forth. Think of it like a funnel, if you will, where the bottom portion, which is where the municipal corporation is, cannot be wider than the top. It's impossible. It could be as wide, but it has to remain within the confines of the size of the structure above it, legally and lawfully. The Constitution was put in place for a reason, much of which is in the Constitution, is to limit government. It's not about limiting we the people or men and women. It's about limiting government. I mean, the Second Amendment, we got all these idiots out here running around talking about how the Second Amendment didn't cover modern weaponry and all. It was about muskets and what the hell ever. It doesn't matter what it's about. It was about limiting government and being able to stop government if government got out of control. It's about a well-regulated militia. The whole part of for hunting and all this stuff and like this geriatric freak show that should be eating pudding, talking about how you don't need a 30-round magazine to take out a deer. If you don't know how to shoot a deer with one shot, you don't know what you're doing. All this macho bullshit. The Second Amendment isn't about hunting or necessarily about having weapons to hunt with. That is another right that we have. But, and that's a huge but, it's for defense, self-defense, for protection, and for a well-regulated militia to push back, to fight back against the government if the government gets out of control. But it's amazing that we've got people that don't realize that that's what the Second Amendment is actually for, what it was put in place for. And so we've got idiots running around talking about how it's for hunting. Well, I mean, it goes to show you how stupid people have gotten in society, if that's what they think. Because, frankly, that's a God-given right to be able to hunt and feed ourselves, to be able to hunt food and animals, whatever. that's a God-given right, and nobody or a government has the right to tell me that I can't. Now, I should be responsible and not go onto people's private property, because that's, the responsible thing to do. That's the grown-up thing to do, is not go hunt on private property without permission and that sort of thing. But as I'm kind of getting off topic, it's ridiculous. So coming back around to the point is that we've got these businesses that are allowed to be out of control because the people that are supposed to control them are not being controlled. And so we've got just a lot of out of control people. And you look at what I've gone through, I, as the beneficiary, was only asking the trustees, the public servants that work for the city, in whichever capacity, whether it's in the police department or city hall of whatever capacity, public service department or whatever, any of them, whomever would, if they even would, to do the job that they were put in place to do, according to the actual law, and also the codes and the oaths of office that they swore to, and so on and so forth. I mean, you go to the websites for the city and you read the description of like the mayor, and it says all these flowery things, like he's supposed to work with people of all different personalities and keep the peace and all this bullshit. That guy's a fucking joke. He won't even comment on shit that he's done, or that he's just stood by and allowed to happen on his watch. He's a coward, and I'm specifically talking about Don Mason. I've got enough evidence to prove it. It's not just my perspective or my opinion, and this isn't slander or anything like that, because it's true. I've got more than enough evidence to prove it. And if anybody wants to question that, well, hell, I'll show you. I'll show you the emails. I'll show you the conversations that I've had with this joker. He's obviously conflicted. But that's a whole nother topic. I'm kind of getting off topic a lot, but you look at what I've gone through as the beneficiary, just wanting to benefit from the property that I've acquired and to live my life how I see fit. And when that gets disrupted because there are people unwilling to follow the law and unwilling to follow the codes and the legal side of things when it comes to corporations and the regulations telling corporations what they can and can't do. See, instead of the corporation being forced to fall in line, the persons, the business operators that are acting on behalf of that particular corporation, instead of them being held accountable for their violations of not just the codes, but of law. See, instead of spending a little bit of the city's budget to address the noise issues with these companies in court or whatever they have to do, send a letter. They probably would only have to send a letter to the principal of each individual company or corporation, and they would probably fix it internally and change the operational hours and that sort of thing to do the right thing. But no, see, instead, what these public servants have done is have terrorized me, threatened my life multiple times, stole my property, attempted to steal my property in other situations. Let's see, I already said threatened my life, I think. Abducted me, falsely detained me for 56 days, and dragged me through all kinds of ridiculous theatrical shows called hearings, where a bunch of colorful people get up and say a bunch of bullshit. You got some asshat in a black dress with pink lipstick on and bozo shoes. Um, that's a trustee acting like he's a beneficiary and standing by while people like myself, a man, is getting abused through the abusive process and malicious prosecution, because these people only have jurisdiction over the contracts between corporations and possibly the corporations uh, themselves. And so in the situation that I found myself in, they were attacking me, the beneficiary, because I was asking them to do their job, to act as they were supposed to do contractually as the trustee or administrator of the agreement of the trust. But instead, what they did is they attacked me, forced me to pay money out of pocket to gain my freedom, extorted me for different values of currency for other purposes. And then on top of that, committed trust fraud by forcing the contractual agreement and then treating me, the beneficiary, as something else entirely, and acting completely abusive and taking advantage of the situation, which is more extortion and racketeering. These are things that the mafia is looked down upon for doing, at least as far as history goes and what we're told. Which, they even admit it to a certain degree, so it's not like it's a conspiracy theory. But things like the RICO Act, the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act, was put in place to hold these organizations accountable that were committing extortion and racketeering and other crimes against people, causing harm and so forth. But so now we have the situation, or we've had the situation, or I've had the situation that these trustees are malfeasant in office. They don't know how to act appropriately, or they don't want to, whichever the case might be. Either one is egregious. And have attacked me and terrorized me, the beneficiary, and have allowed, even still, after everything that went down, they still are allowing these corporations to make as much noise as they want at night, to violate the codes that actually apply to them. So here's what actually is happening. Because of the malfeasance of people like Don Mason, people like Kelly Cottrell, people like Michael Hughes, people like Doug Murray, people like Tony Corey, people like Jordan Blanton and Patnod, whatever his first name is, the Joker that doesn't know how to investigate a matter properly. I don't know how the hell he got promoted. It has to be by favoritism. But anyways, as I digress, these people have opened up a door for me as a beneficiary, because they're not willing to do their jobs accordingly, and they're obviously not trustworthy. they've opened up a door now. So not only are they going to be held accountable financially for the damages that they've caused, but now I have a door that I can go through to uh, deal with these companies directly. And so the same process that I'm going through to hold these public servants accountable financially, I'm going to go through to hold these business operators or the principals or the corporation itself, because the corporation itself as a whole or their insurance will end up paying. But it very well may cause the business to go under. They might actually have to become bankrupt because of it. And it's really too bad because, not that they will, because, who knows how it will affect them, down the road. However, it really is sad that the public servants weren't more responsible and honorable. Because if they would have held this situation appropriately, or if they would have handled it appropriately, let me rephrase that. If they would have handled it appropriately, uh, it would have been as simple as mitigating production at night to a point to where it's not causing all kinds of noise, disturbing the peace, and so on and so forth. Um, they could still do some type of production, probably mostly maintenance or something like that they were probably doing during the day. Excuse me. They could do that at night instead of doing full production where they're making all this racket and noise. They could scale it down to maintenance and to other activity that isn't making a bunch of noise, but still productive. Um, they could have done that, and it wouldn't have cost the city much of anything. Maybe a letter or two, for the law director if he was smart enough to write a proper letter like that to address the situation and send it to the principal or principals of the corporations. It probably could have been handled pretty easily, and none of these people or none of the companies or corporations would have been drastically affected. There could have been a what's the word, cooperation to a means of uh, see, it's not compliance. There's a word I'm looking for. It's more cooperation. Uh, where we're working together to come to an agreement that's good for everybody. That's what I was interested in initially, and what I was looking for by contacting the public servants from the city in the first place was for them to do their duty and do what they were supposed to do because they had the duty to act, but they refused. And so now, not only is it going to cost most of them, I have a list of about 24 people so far that are getting filed against, but also uh, now these companies, these corporations that are making all the noise and racket that the malfeasant public servants are covering for, whether they realize it or not, I don't care. Now it's going to cost these companies, and the repercussions of all of this. At the very least, I hope that these people won't be allowed to hold a public position, especially the public servants. I hope going through this endeavor that is one of the outcomes is that they will not be able to hold an insurance policy, or no insurance company will be willing to insure them because of their track record. And so therefore they won't be able to hold a public position because for any public servant to hold a public position, they have to be able to be insured. Um, so that's one of the outcomes, hopefully, of all of this, is that these people will be forced out of the uh, out of that system for with they won't be able to be a public servant any longer. So hopefully we can get some people in there that will act right and know what the hell they're supposed to do. Now, as far as the companies are concerned, I still to this point I'm not interested in bankrupting the company or making the company shut down altogether. I was just looking for peace and quiet at night. If they want to operate during the day, hey, there's normal operating hours. As long as they're, the noise isn't beyond a certain level, as long as it's reasonable. Hey, have at it. If they need to make more noise than what's reasonable, then they need to relocate their business. Or just don't make that much noise. Specifically and predominantly at night is what I'm referring to. It's pretty simple. That's what a mature man or woman would realize. And that's what a mature business operator would do to manage their business. Because, see, this is what happens when they don't do the right thing, and when they're not held accountable for when they don't do the right thing. When these public servants let them get away with whatever, let it slide and protect them. Well, it actually ends up costing them more. And so there's a potential, like I said, that these particular companies or corporations may go out of business because of all of this. And it really is sad. I mean, it's not like they add that many jobs to the area. And frankly, I at this point, I really don't care. I've given them more than enough opportunity, not just the companies themselves, but the public servants supposedly over this area that have a duty to act. I've given them more than ample opportunity. I've been more than patient after everything that I've gone through. Have I been perfect? No. But I don't have to be. I don't have to be perfect. I just have to know what my rights are and who I am and what their limitations are. Because when they do stuff like this, then I can hold them accountable in other ways. If they're nepotistic buddies in the courts are going to cover up for them and derail court cases and accept hearsay and people's explanation that had no firsthand knowledge of the situation whatsoever, didn't even address the evidence or the affidavits that were submitted in the case in the first place. The actual complaints, those were ignored. It's ironic how my affidavits and complaints get ignored, but the incompetent public servants and the jerk off I'm going to use the word public servants because they don't deserve the other terms. People like Chris Andrews and Tom Porter, or what's his name, Sean Porter. These people are. They have to be the most incompetent people I've ever encountered. I mean, bar none. They are the cream of the crop when it comes to incompetency. Because they call themselves quote unquote detectives, so they should have some ability to actually investigate. But these people are dumber than a damn box of rocks. They ignore evidence. See, I mean, I could just go on and on and on. It's more examples of this sheer incompetence. These people that are either just that stupid, they don't know better, or they're trying to manipulate the system to their advantage, and I don't know, maybe they're just used to getting away with it, and so they don't have any reason to hide it anymore, or I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I guess it could be a little of both, or a lot of both. I mean, either way you look at it, it's still against the law. Um, even though they claim to have immunity and all this bullshit, it's only because of the nepotism. Because the prosecutors aren't going to bite the hand that feeds them. They're not going to charge the officers that bring them the court cases that all the money is being made from in the first place. Not to mention the tickets and the other fines uh, that are being created in the police departments themselves. But these things get dragged into the courts, and even more money's made off of it. So that's really why they're being protected. There really is no law that allows any one man or woman to have more rights than another. Period. We all have the same amount of rights. We're all supposed to. But it's a matter of what you're willing to accept. And if you're willing to accept having your rights taken from you, and if you're willing to accept these people acting this way, then hey, that's on you. You made your bed, you're going to lay in it. I feel bad for you. I feel sorry for you. I pity you. But, that's your choice. For me, I'm making my choice. They're not going to get away with it. It doesn't matter. I mean, at the very least, at this point, everything that they've done is on the record. Everything that they've done, because I've called and asked them to do their jobs that they're supposed to do, that they're required to do by state law. Or state code, however you want to look at it, which actually applies to the corporation. So, even though they have a duty to act that they've ignored, and they've admitted it, even after everything that's been said and done, even after they've stolen my property, they stole my gun, they violated the Second Amendment, which, I mean, for crying out loud, I mean, I don't want to say it couldn't get any worse, because it can. But even after all of that, even after almost 4 years of all this bullshit and nonsense from these people, because they're too stupid to realize that they have a job to act. They have a duty to act. And they think I'm just going to go away. But they don't even, at this point, they don't even try to make up for their lack of ability. They're so out to lunch that they're trying at this point at all costs to ignore it and thinking it's going to go away. That's why people like Donald Mason won't answer his phone anymore. That's why he won't come to the phone anymore, because he knows he's going to get exposed. So it's easier for him to hide. That's a coward. I mean, that's a cowardly move. What kind of, for all you that voted for him in the election, I mean, did you realize you were voting for a coward? Someone who stands by and lets people in the community be terrorized by his employees, even after he was made aware of the situation and admitted that it was the city's responsibility, still stood by and let all of this happen. Even after all of that, still doesn't even have the maturity and the level of responsibility to do anything about it. It really is a shame. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. But could it be that it's the conflict of interest that this individual has? Donald Mason. Look at all the other oaths that he's sworn to other groups besides, the people of Zanesville. Maybe it's these other oaths, these secret oaths that he's taken that, he has to do certain things for other people in those other certain groups that he's taken oaths to. Maybe that's conflicting with his ability to do his job as a public servant, as a quote unquote mayor. Maybe that's why he didn't bother to do anything to address the matter appropriately. He acknowledged it. I guess that was the first step, is acknowledging it. But after that, it was kind of a shit show of one incompetent public servant after another, and me dealing with the probably some of the most retarded people that I've ever met, because that's what they are. They have the ability to learn, but they haven't for some reason or another. And so it's not really about ability, it's more about maturity, I think. So, yeah, I mean, at this point, it makes no difference, because all of these people will be held accountable for their actions in one way, shape, or form or another. And when I am done with these filings and documents and so forth, and when my trustee does what they have to do to create the liens, hopefully these people will learn. And if not, then hopefully whomever replaces them will think twice before they act the way that these people have acted. Because they may just find themselves in a similar situation. But we'll see. I mean, what's the phrase? It takes a village. So, I mean, it's really up to the people of Zanesville, whether or not the people actually want to be free from this type of tyranny, or accept it. Because there's only so much I can do, and I can only speak for myself. So when I find myself in the situation being treated the way that I have, I have a decision to make on whether or not I want to hold these people accountable. But whether or not the area, the people here change, honestly, I would like to see them learn who they are and be truly free. But if they don't, as much as it saddens me, it is what it is. I use the idea of, there's that phrase, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't force it to drink. Well, I've added a little bit to it. I don't know if that was the original, phrase or saying altogether, but my sentiment is, if I lead a horse to water and I, give it an opportunity to drink, if it doesn't drink and it dies from thirst, other than feeling sorry for it because it was too stupid to stay alive, I did my part. I led the horse to the water. I gave it the opportunity for life. If it chose not to, or if it chooses not to, it ends up dying because it didn't bother to make the right decision and just drink the damn water, well, I don't feel sorry. I don't have a reason to be apologetic. I don't have a reason, excuse me, I don't have a reason to feel guilty, because I did my part. And so I think, as far as a bigger picture, I think this is where our whole country is, to one extent or another, in different areas. Where now we're being forced to decide, what do you want? Do you want to be ruled with an iron fist by incompetent fools that have no clue what the hell they're doing and they're just winging it? and they don't give a damn about you or anybody else in your family? Or do you want to take the time, invest some of your time, and educate yourselves and learn some of these things so that way you can be free? So that way, when these tyrants drag you into a courtroom, you know what to say or what to do, whichever, or both, to put them in their place. I mean, had I actually had experiences in the courts and dealing with tyrants prior to this, I probably would have had a much different experience. But being that it was my first time dealing on that level with this kind of tyranny, people who just have no respect for people at all, uh, they're just doing their job. They don't care if they harm or hurt other people. It's because they're just doing their job. They're earning their paycheck. Give me a fucking break. Those are cowards. Because you take the uniform off, you take the damn badge off, you take away all the rhetoric about being heroes, and what do you have? You have a fucking coward that probably wouldn't do half the shit that they're doing wearing the uniform. Probably most, if not all, of the shit that they're doing wearing a uniform. They wouldn't do that. They probably wouldn't act the way that they do. The only reason they act the way that they do is because they've got the uniform. They've got the license to be an asshole. Because they're doing their job. Well, it's a perversion of the true meaning and reason for that position in the first place. It really is sad. It really is sad that these people walk around acting like they're heroes or some shit. Walk on the thin blue line. You got to protect the thin blue line. That brotherhood. What the fuck ever. It's a cult. It's a damn cult is what it's become. A cult of murderers and extorters. I mean, they're the most criminal organizations that I know of. At least in my area that I'm aware of, they are the biggest criminals. Because they do the same shit that they arrest other people for and don't think about it twice. They don't think twice about it. They don't bat an eye at it. They don't question it. They don't, should I or shouldn't I? No, they don't even care. They're doing their job. Their job says that they can do that. Well, when your job goes against things like the Constitution, when your job goes against things like my rights, yeah, we have a problem. And if I can't hold you accountable physically because you're protected by your nepotistic buddies, well, I'll hold you accountable financially. Because I know damn well most of these people aren't smart enough to figure it out. So, like they fucked me by not doing their job and threatening my life and all the other bullshit that they did. Well, now they get a taste of their own medicine in a little bit different flavor. So when they're sitting at home or wherever because they don't have a home anymore and have lost everything and they can't get a job as a public servant anymore because no insurance company will insure them, maybe then they'll think about what they did. Maybe then they'll consider what they did and learn from it, and maybe they'll talk to their other buddies that did stupid bad shit too, and they'll talk amongst themselves, say, hey, maybe we shouldn't have done that. Maybe this is why we're in the, or not, probably not. They're probably just so immature that they'll just, hate life. They'll blame me for it like it's all my fault. Like they didn't do anything wrong. They didn't do nothing, how the saying goes. Uh, Give me a break. They made their bed, they're going to lay in it. Period. I was forced to eat a shit sandwich, so they're going to eat a shit sandwich, but their shit sandwich is going to be a lot bigger than the one that I was forced to eat. I hate to break it to them. So, yeah, if any of you are listening, any names I rattled off, or any friends or family of those people, hey, enjoy the fun while it lasts, because the paperwork's being processed and it's only a matter of time. And what the actual outcome or repercussions are going to be entirely, I can't say. But we'll see where the chips fall. We'll see what and whom are affected, and whom is able to get out from underneath it, if anyone. Frankly, the jury's still out on whether or not you all are competent enough to really do much of anything besides, I guess, feed yourself and survive, keep yourself alive. But when it comes to doing anything more complicated than that, unless you're told specifically what to do, obviously you can't think for yourselves. So, anyways, yeah, it was a good public service announcement for all those public servants listening. Think about what you're doing. You might think twice next time before you decide to break the law. And if not, well, hopefully you'll run into somebody like me that'll make you think twice about it. Because that's ultimately what it's about, is holding you accountable and making sure, like I said earlier in this recording, the Second Amendment wasn't about hunting or just owning a gun or a firearm just to own one for posterity's sake. No, it was for a well-regulated militia. It was for the purpose that we, the people, have the ability to fight back against a tyrannical government. That's what it was put in place for. Now, for you idiots listening, and I have to say it that way to get your attention, don't read too far into this. I'm not making any threats. I'm not saying I'm going to do anything crazy. I'm not, making insinuations. I am just conveying information, such as the purpose of the Second Amendment, for the purpose of the conversation, if you want to call it that, or the discussion, dissertation, however you want to characterize it. But don't let your feeble little minds read too far into this. Don't let your sensitive feelings get too triggered, because I'm just speaking from facts and truth. I know some people can't handle that. So if you're not one of those people, then hey, bless you. Keep your head up and keep educating yourself. As I have said before, and I will always say it, you owe it to yourself to know the truth and let the truth set you free.